The topic for this video is going to be lifestyle classes. So we've already discussed the difference between a net income and a spendable income. Once you've figured out what your spendable income is, now it's time to take a look and see what kind of a lifestyle might you be able to actually live while you're here. And I made a couple notes just to make it a little bit easier for me to remember this, but essentially, no matter what lifestyle you have here, doesn't matter if you're super rich or super poor, there are certain things that you need to make sure you have wherever you live. It's just the breakdown requirement. These are basically when you're looking at places to live, these things have to be on the checklist, and you have to make sure that you're able to check these things off with that, good to go before you consider someplace. One of the first things is going to be your shelter and security. And what I'm talking about with that is shelter. It doesn't matter if you're poor, rich, in between. You have to have a place that is sheltered from the environment, from the weather. It can get very hot, it can get rainy. It all just depends on what part of the country you live in. You might have high winds, you might have flood areas. You want to make sure that whatever you're living in, if it's something as simple as a rented bedroom to a high-rise condo, a house out in the suburbs, wherever, you need to make sure that you have that shelter in place. So that if the weather gets bad, you can button up, you've got a place to stay, you're going to be warm, you're going to be dry. Essentially, you're not going to have to worry about any of the side effects from it. If the weather's extremely hot, you want to make sure you have enough ventilation so you're not suffocating and burning up. But, shelter basically means you're not living in a sleeping bag. You're not living in an open bamboo hut. You need to have proper shelter. At the same time, security. Security has a couple different faces to it. So the first one is going to be physical security, being able to secure your possessions. You need to make sure that wherever it is that you're living, your space, your possessions are able to be secured from others. If you're living in a house, like you're renting a house from somebody, renting a room, etc., sharing a space, your separate area must be able to be secured so that you can lock it, so you don't have to worry about people getting into your stuff, messing with things, whatever. You also want to make sure that the area you're in has some security. You're not going to be in a high crime area. You don't have to worry about militants and terrorists trying to kidnap you and ransom you off or behead you. Trust me, that does happen in places in the country, more to the south, but, make sure you're not in a area that's going to be a fire risk. You're not going to be worried about, electrical problems, like safety, security, and, pretty much not getting jacked. One of the other ones that you really want to make sure is that you are going to have access to proper food and water storage. Your water that comes out of your tap, no matter where you live, it doesn't matter if you live in a high-rise fancy condo, good resort, or a small little shack, doesn't matter. Anywhere in the country you're at, unfortunately, the water that comes from the city, from the tap, it's not safe to drink. We use this to shower with, brush our teeth, wash our dishes. But when it comes to drinking the water, cooking our food, we do not use the tap water. It's just not safe to drink. You purchase purified, or if you choose, you have like mineral water, but you get these large water jugs, and I'll be showing those later when I do a walkthrough of our own place. But you want to make sure that you have access to those water containers. You want to make sure that you have access to the refilling locations. You have to make sure you've got that clean drinking water. Same thing with your food. You need to make sure that you have an area to prepare and cook your meals if you're going to be cooking. And even if you're just going to plan on eating out all the time, you don't really need to cook anything. It's still a good idea to have some type of food storage. If you don't have the money for a nice big refrigerator, at least look into getting like a mini fridge. That way you can still keep your meals in there, leftovers or whatever, snacks, drinks. They'll be kept cool. You don't have to worry about, at bare minimum, ice cooler, go to the local Sorry, and you're constantly refilling it with ice. But your best option is at least try to find like a mini fridge. But you want to have a place where you can safely, securely store food and water, where it's going to be kept sanitary you're going to avoid your food spoilage, things like that. You also want to make sure that you're going to have an area to keep your food and everything without roaches and ants and anything else, rats, whatever, getting to your food supply. So, get some kind of cabinets or something like that for storing your food items. The other one, personal health and hygiene. We're all adults. I shouldn't have to cover this, but being an instructor in the military, I saw plenty of adults that didn't have this down. You need to make sure you're washing your ass, basically. You don't have to shave if that's not something that you're into, but if you're not wanting a scraggly beard and stuff, I would say go get your supplies so that you can do a shave. If you don't want to pay for razors, the barber shops around here can shave for pretty cheap. I think it's like $3 for a full shave. But keep your hygiene good. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. Even if you live in a place with air conditioning, if you're leaving your place where there is no aircon, you're going to be sweating it up and taking showers to keep that sweat and everything off. It's going to be good for your health and hygiene. Make sure you have proper wash facilities, you have proper toilet facilities. Just keep an eye on your health and hygiene. Brush your teeth, just common sense, things that most adults already should know. You really want to make sure that here, though. The big thing is because, in your home country in the West, if you have a habit of not brushing your teeth that often, you have dental problems, it's easy for you to get a dental appointment. Here, dental, yeah, it can be relatively cheap and easy to do, but still, especially with certain health conditions, you're putting yourself at a much more risk if you're not maintaining proper health and hygiene. Another one is going to be access to facilities, necessary facilities. Make sure you're not going to have to travel 30 minutes just to get to a grocery store. If you are going to need food, things like that, make sure that you have a laundry facility nearby. Make sure you have a water refill station nearby, some kind of a food market, grocery store, anything like that. Make sure you have your food locations that are within reasonable distance. If you're looking for meals, like prepared meals, you don't have to live near restaurants. A lot of times, if you go on like Facebook Marketplace, whatever your local barangay is, you're going to have different Facebook groups that are for that local barangay, and there's lots of people on there that are constantly selling meals, snacks, people that can go out to the store. Here, delivery services are a big deal. So even fast food places like McDonald's, Burger King, Jollibee, a lot of these places that maybe in the West you don't have delivery. Here, a lot of them do. But if you live outside of their delivery area, or if you have an address that it's not easy for them to find, so they won't deliver, you can look in Facebook groups, and there are people that have a motorcycle, scooter, wherever, and they'll actually go and pick up the food for you. You just pay them a tip for going to pick it up. So you want to make sure that you have access to everything that you need. Hospitals, make sure you are aware of what hospitals are in your area, what services those hospitals do and don't offer. What are your options for things like emergency services, ambulance care, fire? How do you contact them if something happens? So make sure you have access to those different needs, those different facilities, and that you understand how to access them. Pretty much that would cover the basics. So no matter where you live, you have to make sure that you check off all of those. From there, we start looking at the lifestyle classes. I pretty much break it down into 3 class categories with the different income ranges. You have survival, you have comfort, and you have luxury. Survival means you are essentially living here on survival mode. You don't have a lot of money, you don't have a nice place to live. There are going to be discomforts, there are going to be annoyances. For many people, they would never even consider moving overseas if that's the lifestyle that they're going to have to live. But for a lot of you guys that are like, don't come here with less than so much money, you can't live here. You also have to understand there are people out there that they're at a midlife crisis, they're having certain situations, they're in a certain circumstance where even if their lifestyle where they are living now is better, It's just financially or emotionally or with whatever situation might be, for them, moving somewhere like to the Philippines and living in lower quality standards would still be better for their overall health and welfare than being where they are now. So for a lot of people to move overseas and to downgrade your living conditions, it might not be favorable, but for them it's still the better alternative than to ending their life or just going hard into the drugs or alcohol or something like that. So there are definitely going to be people out there that if their income is still fairly low, they're not able to do well in their home country, and this is kind of that last option that they have. There are going to be people out there that will seriously consider moving here if they're in that lower quality of lifestyle. So that survival mode. Survival mode means you are pretty much here surviving. You have all of your basic needs met. Might not be the greatest, but you have a place to live, you have your food, your shelter, all those things that we're talking about. You've got all that checked off. You're still living okay. You're obviously going to have challenges and stuff to face, but it is quite possible to still live happily here under those circumstances. It just depends on the person. The comfort level means your income level is enough that you can live in a decent place. It's not going to be amazing. You're not going to live in a huge condo or something like that. You're not going to be driving a fancy car. You might not even have an air conditioner. You're going to be living comfortably, but you're just going to be missing out on some of those luxury, items, features, whatever you want to call it. The comfort level is where I'm at. I don't have the income level to afford a lot of the luxuries that a lot of others do, things that I would like. Someday, maybe I can afford it, but right now I can't. So right now I'm in that comfort zone. I'm doing better than survival. We do have certain comfort items, and there are a few items that I would even consider luxury. But really what I'm talking about is survival is you have what's needed to survive. Comfort means a couple of items that are just one step up from survival. They increase your comfort a little bit, but they aren't the best option. And then luxury is you've got the best out there. You got a nice place that you're living in, a fancy neighborhood, you're eating great meals, you're sleeping good. You have a good life. One simple example of the difference between those is if you are living in a place and all you have, it's nice, it's hot, it's humid, all you have is a fan. One fan. It's going to be hot. We're talking possibly 90 plus degrees inside your house. You're going to be sweating during the day. You're still alive. You're not at risk of overheating, getting heat stroke or heat exhaustion. You're okay. It's just not very comfortable. Comfort level would be you've got 2, maybe 3 fans. Maybe you have one of the air coolers, but you still can't quite afford that air conditioner yet. Luxury is you've got air conditioning. You've got your place buttoned up. You don't have to worry about mosquitoes coming in. You've got air conditioning. Your place is a nice cool temp all the time. So that's a good example of how it varies between those. As far as the income range, for me, if you're making less than $600 per month, again, this is spendable income for one person. If you're making less than $600 per month, you're going to be in that survival class. There are possibly a few comfort items you can afford. Maybe you can afford 2 fans. But essentially, it also depends on what part of the country you're in. If you're out in the province area, out in the middle of nowhere, things are going to be substantially cheaper. If you're going to be living inside the metro area or just outside of Manila or Cebu, somewhere like that, that's a bigger city, survival mode will not be enjoyable. It's going to be very difficult. But still, even at the survival budget range, you can live okay in farther provincial areas. You're just going to have less access to certain amenities like good fiber internet or things like that. Personally, though, I would say if you're making less than $600 per month of spendable income, you're going to be in that survival range, because there are just certain comfort items you're probably not going to want to be spending. As far as the comfort zone, you're looking at anywhere between what I would say $600 to $1,500 spendable income. If you're making $1,500 US per month of spendable income, you should be able to live a good, comfortable life. Still might take you time to save up for a few of those luxury items like the air conditioning or nice big TV, things like that. But you can live comfortably. If you are making more than $1,500 per month, you should be able to live a decent life here. If you have certain factors that are going to chew into that, if you're real big on drinking, you're big on going out to the bars and enjoying that extra nightlife, if you know what I'm talking about. If you enjoy that type of a lifestyle, you're going to need a lot more money. If you are not single, if you are with girlfriend, wife, acquaintances, whatever you want to call it, it's going to cost more money for your expenses. If you have certain extravagant tastes, it's going to require more money. And I don't mean anything offensive or anything to certain people out there, but I see a lot of people that will retire here in the Philippines that think they're going to live here just like they were living in their home country, and that somehow it's all going to be the same. And it's not. If you want to live here like you lived in the U.S., you want to eat like you were eating in the U.S., sorry about the damn dog. If you're wanting to enjoy those types of luxuries in a foreign country, it's going to cost you, because all that stuff has to be imported. That is above what the average person here is going to be wanting. So if you're wanting to live in a really nice condo or a nice house with all good furniture and appliances, and you want everything to be, you know, American this and Italian that, and you want all your good food and everything, like eating out all the time, it's going to be very expensive. So there are some people that they have their minimum standards. They must absolutely have air conditioning. They must absolutely have some kind of TV and internet service. They have to be living in a certain type of residence. They can't be living with certain features, things like that. If that's you, you know, that's your choice. That's your lifestyle choice. But just understand that it's going to cost you substantially more than if you were willing to live closer to the local standards, in a sense. And when you start seeing my house and the cost of my living, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But that really is what we're looking at when it comes to lifestyle and cost of living. It's possible to transition between those. So if you initially come here and you are living in that middle range where you've got comfort, you are able to save up some money. Over time, you can gradually buy certain items that would be considered luxury items. You save up enough, you might be able to buy all the air conditioning you want. You can start getting the big screen TVs or gaming computer. You can go out and get a vehicle. You know, all these different things that might be considered more of a luxury item, even though your income still has you at that mid-range comfort level. If you're saving up and spending your money properly, over time, eventually, you can start buying some of these luxury items. If you come over here and you aren't managing your money properly, you start going overboard on a few expenses, you might see yourself dipping into that survival or lower category. If you come over here thinking that things are great, you're living luxury, but then you're blowing your money on things, you might start seeing yourself drop down to the comfort level. So it just depends on how you budget your money and what your different expectations and requirements are. Hopefully this has been useful information. Next I'll be going through and I'll be doing a walkthrough of my own house here. And then we're going to look at talking about budgets, different monthly expenses, and that way after you've seen my house, you'll be able to understand when I'm talking about my budget, why certain things cost what they do. Hopefully this is going to be really useful information for you guys to start making those choices. And really what's important for you to take away from this is that You can't just ask somebody else, how much is it going to cost for me to live there? That person doesn't know your requirements. They don't know your situation. They're going to give you pricing based on their own opinions, their own lifestyles. Some of them can be fairly accurate, but some of them can be very inaccurate. You know, if people are out there saying, if you make less than $2,000 US per month, don't even think about retiring here. Your life will be hell. That's wrong. Plenty of people come over here with less than that, and they do quite well. At the same time, if you have a lot of different factors that are playing into your budget, they're eating away at your expenses, your spendable income might be so low at that point that, yeah, you're going to have more money to cover those expenses. Some people, they don't know the situation of others. They can't understand that different people have different expenses, different lifestyles. So you got to do your research and figure it out for yourself. And that's where, you know, making your contacts and figuring out, you know, people that can give you accurate estimates on different expenses. So, sorry this has been a little bit longer video. Hopefully it's been useful. We'll go ahead and get into the walkthrough of my place.